5 sinister true stories discovered this summer that will haunt your nights forever in the quiet suburb of Maplewood, Illinois. Shadows fall long and deep, harboring secrets that twist the very fabric of reality. Sarah, a determined single mother, is determined to keep her life together this summer, especially after being laid off from her job as a school nurse. She pieces together summer plans for her 2 children, 10-year-old Mia and 6-year-old Jake, unaware that darkness looms closer than she can imagine. One sultry July night, after an exhausting shift at the local hospital, Sarah receives a chilling anonymous text message. "There's someone watching your family." Her gut tightens, but she dismisses it as a sick joke. Prank, she thinks, maybe even from one of Mia's friends. Still, as the comforting suburban streets fall silent, a creeping unease settles over her like a dark cloud. The next day, she finds her kitchen window gaping wide open, as if an unseen hand had pried it apart, and Jake's favorite toy, his red truck, now rests unnaturally by the back fence, a silent challenge taunting her sanity. The summer progresses, each day blending into the next, but sensations of dread unfurl with the heat. Sarah notices Mr. Reynolds, her seemingly trustworthy neighbor, lurking on the fringes of her yard, his gaze unervingly focused on her children as they play. At first, she chalks it up to simply being friendly. But warm smiles begin to morph into something darker when he lingers too long, helping Mia with her books, envisaging smiles that seem forced. What hides behind Mr. Reynolds' cheerful facade? A palpable tension thickens the air around Sarah, festering like an infection. Even her visit to the local police station, where she shares her concerns, yields little reassurance. "You're just stressed, Sarah. Single mom and all," the officer intones dismissively, waving her off. But she doesn't feel stressed, she feels hunted, each heartbeat echoing like an alarm, a warning. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the summer solstice inches closer, the backdrop of her once quiet neighborhood shifts ominously. Night after night, Sarah peeks through the curtains, her breath hitching at every rustle outside. That sense of safety, that suburban trust, unravels like an old sweater, fraying in her fingertips. Gentle creaks of the house pierce her thoughts, floors groan with whispers, and shadows seem to slink closer with each passing hour. Driven by instinct, she takes to following Mr. Reynolds one evening, her heart pounding like a war drum. The night wraps around her as she trails him through the park, determination morphing into gripping fear. Her footsteps quiet as she closes in, every sound magnified, the trill of a cricket, the rustle of leaves, until she crosses an ominous threshold. She turns a corner and stops cold, caught in a moment pregnant with dread. A hulking figure stands before her, back turned. Sarah's breath freezes in her throat. The shadowed figure slowly turns, and as they face her, terror ignites. This is no accidental encounter, it's a confrontation woven from the fabric of trust and betrayal. In her frantic search for security, she has stumbled into a trap far more sinister than she could ever anticipate. In that moment, her heart races with the sickening realization. Her pursuit of protecting her children has unearthed the darkness hidden right beneath her suburban paradise. The facade is cracked. The haunting whispers of Maplewood grow louder, daring her to uncover the chilling truths that lurk beyond the illusion of safety. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing an all-too-familiar face. Mr. Reynolds. His smile, once easy and friendly, twisted into something menacing. "Looking for something, Sarah?" His voice dripped with mockery, sending icy tendrils of fear clutching at her spine. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't form. Panic surged through her, pushing her to look behind. The park was empty, a stillness wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. It was just him and her. Why are you doing this?" She finally stammered, dread pooling in her stomach. "Doing what?" he replied, tilting his head with a grotesque curiosity, a predator toying with its prey. I merely wanted to talk. After all, neighbors should look out for each other. A chill swept through her veins. This was no neighborly exchange. This was a dance with malevolence. As if sensing her growing terror, he leaned closer, eyes glinting in the murky darkness. You know, Sarah, he whispered, the children are at an age where they could really use guidance. They need someone to help them. Someone like me. Someone who won't let you stand in the way of what they really need. Her stomach churned. She lost all pretense of calm. Stay away from my children, she hissed, backing away, her feet stumbling over the uneven grass. With a sudden motion, he stepped forward, cutting off her retreat. But what if I told you I see their potential? I see what they can become, and I have a gift for them. All you need to do is let go of your fear. Terror spilled over, pooling in her lungs, as she felt a suffocating grip tighten around her heart. This was a man who had crossed the line from benign to malignant. Leave my family alone. The strength of her voice shocked even her. Desperation clawed its way up from her core. He chuckled, a sound so devoid of warmth it cut sharply through the quiet night air. You have no idea what is truly happening here. Do you? He straightened, suddenly imposing, dark shadows playing off his face. You're not just a wary mother in a beautiful home, Sarah. There's so much more at play. I've been keeping an eye on your family for much longer than you think. She pivoted, urgency surging through her limbs, every instinct telling her to escape. She would not let him disrupt her family. She glanced back briefly, catching a glimpse of the lingering malice in his eyes. Run all you want, he called after her. But I'll always be watching, always near. The veil is thin here, and once it's lifted, we shall see what you're truly made of. Her feet pounded the pavement, lungs burning as she sprinted towards home. Each frantic step resonated with an echo of dread that chased her, a relentless whisper reminding her of her own vulnerability. As she burst through her front door, she locked it behind her. Her heart racing, a storm of fear and disbelief raged within her. She peered out through the curtains, watching, waiting. But the dark shape of Mr. Reynolds had vanished. The house felt oppressive, shadows hanging heavy in every corner. She turned from the windows, ready to tell Mia and Jake that everything was all right. But a chill crawled up her spine as she remembered the feeling of being watched. There was a thud from upstairs, a sound heavy and unsettling. Taking a deep breath, Sarah clenched her fists. She had to protect her kids. They needed her now. She stepped towards the stairs, the fear gripping tighter with each hesitant step. And just as she reached for the banister, the phone buzzed in her pocket, vibrating like a heartbeat. There's someone in the house. Her blood ran cold. What did that mean for her family? And who was really watching them now? Sarah froze, the phone still humming in her pocket like a trapped insect. The words "there's someone in the house" replayed in her mind, a twisted echo bouncing against the walls of her thoughts. Fear tightened its coils around her chest, latching down hard. Who had sent that message? The thud echoed again, firmer this time. Came from upstairs. She clutched the phone tightly, sweat beading on her forehead. Mia and Jake were upstairs, oblivious to the horror unfolding below. She could feel her heart hammering, the dread pooling deeper in her stomach like poison. Think, Sarah, think, she whispered to herself, willing her mind to focus through the haze of fear. I need to get to them now. She took a cautious step towards the stairs, every creak of floorboards beneath her feet sounding like a warning. Each step up felt like walking through treacle, sluggish and heavy. Just as she reached the landing, the air changed, thickened, a suffocating silence replacing the usual sounds of her home. Mommy? A small voice floated toward her from down the hall. Jake. The sound twisted her stomach into knots. He sounded scared, but alive. She steadied her breath, fighting to suppress the rising panic. I'm coming. Stay where you are, she called back, forcing her voice to sound firm, even as it trembled. But Sarah felt it, something primal lurking, waiting. It was there in the shadows, pooling just beyond her sight, crawling along the walls. She turned toward the kids' room, the light gleaming weakly under the door. Half of her wanted to rush in. The other half froze her in place. Another thud resonated from the bathroom, the sound prickling icy fear onto her skin. She hesitated, fighting against the instinct to run and throw herself into the safety of her children's room. What if whatever was in the house decided to seize that moment? She pulled her phone out again, her fingers shaking. She could call for help, but what if her voice carried? What if the intruder heard? There was something dreadfully wrong happening here. Something that churned her stomach. A voice echoed down the hallway, barely a whisper. "Mommy, please." The plea sent a jolt through her. It was her daughter, Mia. Fear contorted her insides, pushing her faster. She stepped towards the room, praying with every ounce of her being that the door was locked. When she reached it, the knob turned easily in her hand. The door swung open slowly, revealing a room bathed in soft light. Mia was huddled beneath the blanket, her eyes wide and terrified. "Mom!" She scrambled to sit up, reaching for Sarah. Relief flooded Sarah for the briefest moment, but goosebumps ached across her skin as she noticed Jake standing frozen by the window, staring into the darkness outside. "Jake, get away from the window!" She rushed toward him, instinctively placing a protective hand on his shoulder. He didn't budge. "Mom, there's someone out there looking at me." Her blood ran cold as she peered outside, but the street lay quiet, only the wind rustling the leaves. Then, just for a fleeting instant, she thought she saw a flicker of movement. A dark shape crouched at the edge of her property, obscured by shadows. "Get down," she shouted, pushing both kids behind her. The last time she had seen Mr. Reynolds, that twisted grin haunted her thoughts. Couldn't be him, but what if? Just then, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, rattling the windows, shattering the fragile moment of safety. Sarah's heart sank. "Stay here," she commanded, summoning all her courage. Her thoughts were swirling, fear clawing at her. The question screamed at her who was out there, and what did they want? She steeled herself for the unknown. There was no time to waste. She couldn't fade into the shadows. And then, from the darkness below, a voice called out a low, familiar lilt that sent ice through her veins. "Sarah, you think you can hide from me?" Could she protect her children in a house that felt like a trap? With no way out, the true horror awaited her response. Her breath hitched in her throat, the sound echoing back at her like a cruel joke. "Sarah, you think you can hide from me?" The voice was unmistakable. Mr. Reynolds crept under her skin, chilling her to the bone. She couldn't see him, but she imagined his twisted smile and her heart raced at the thought. "Mom, who is it?" Mia whispered, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. "Stay behind me," Sarah whispered back, her heart pounding wildly against her ribs. She scanned the room, searching for anything she might use as a weapon. A lamp? A chair? Nothing felt adequate. "Please be careful," Jake muttered from behind her, fear thick in his voice. Another crash echoed below, this time from the kitchen. Pots and pans clanged together like a hellish symphony, each note striking terror deep in Sarah's heart. She had to move. "Now, close your eyes," she said, willing calm into her voice. She knelt down, her eyes level with the kids. "Whatever happens, don't look. Just stay quiet." The kids nodded, wide-eyed and trembling. Sarah turned toward the hallway, her heart pounding, each beat a drum of dread. One step forward and the floor creaked menacingly beneath her. She could just make out the faint glow of the hall light reflecting off the walls, promising sanctuary with its fragile warmth, but danger lurked in every shadow. "Sarah." His voice was nearer now, playful yet sinister, like a whisper from the grave. "Why are you hiding?" "I just want to play." She swallowed hard and forced herself forward, suddenly overwhelmed by the icy sensation of being watched. It was suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on her. She reached the edge of the landing, glancing at the stairs that led down into the all-consuming blackness below. Muffled sounds echoed down the stairwell, a low thudding, the creak of wood. Felt alive, breathing, waiting. The familiar fear clawed at her, demanding to take control. but she pushed it down. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about protecting her children. "Stay here. I'll be right back," she whispered, making a conscious effort to keep her voice steady. She had to act quickly. Cautiously, Sarah descended the stairs, her pulse quickening with each step. The oppressive darkness swallowed her whole as she moved further away from the kids. She could barely see through the dim light that flickered weakly from the wall sconce, casting long, twisted shadows across the floor. Suddenly, there came another crash, the sound of glass shattering. A surge of adrenaline shot through her. That shouldn't be possible. She had locked all the doors and windows after the warnings from the neighbors. Dread washed over her. Just how long had he been waiting? "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, though she knew she wasn't talking to Mr. Reynolds. Sarah steeled herself and reached the kitchen doorway. With trembling hands, she flicked on the light, spilling pale illumination over the chaos-broken dishes. Flowers spread like snow over the floor, and the open back door swinging gently on its hinges. A heavy silence blanketed the room, making her feel exposed. She felt as if the shadows were alive, swirling around her, ready to pounce. "Sarah?" A sweet but mocking voice teased from just beyond the door. "I'm right here. Don't you want to find me?" Fear gripped her throat. The children, they were upstairs alone. She could not let him have them. "Get away from them," she shouted, her own voice sounding foreign and wild. The door swung open wider, revealing only blackness beyond, an inkling of movement whispering at the edge of her vision. Could she truly afford to leave the kids alone for just one moment more? And then, the last thing she expected happened. A small, nimble figure darted into the house from the shadows, a streak of dark that zipped just past her. The wind from the door whooshed past, and an icy chill grazed her cheek. "Let us play hide and seek," the whisper coiled around her like a serpent, sending her heart spiraling. "Find me if you can." The terrifying truth set in: she was no longer the hunter. She was prey. As her breath quickened, they were waiting for her, waiting to see what she would do next. Could she still protect her children? And where had the voice come from? With the house alive in chaos, Sarah took a step back into the darkness, dread clawing at her heart. Things were only just beginning. The air felt electric, heavy with dread. Sarah's heart raced as she crept back, her instincts screaming at her to retreat. But retreating meant leaving the kids vulnerable. Everything depended on her. "Mom!" Mia's voice echoed softly from upstairs, breaking the silence, and it froze Sarah in place. They were still there. But for how long? Time felt elastic, stretching into eternity as she waged war against her own terror. Suddenly, the small figure that had darted past her flickered back into vision, dark and swift, taunting with an unsettling chill. "Come and play." Sarah, the voice was melty, dripping with malice and glee all at once. "No, no," she gasped out loud, eyes wide in horror. She needed to stay focused. Sarah turned on her heel, clutching a kitchen knife she had barely noticed in her trembling hand. Felt pitiful. Too small. It wouldn't help against the dark. "Stay down." She yelled toward the staircase. A shadow flickered again beyond the doorframe. But this time the movement didn't slink back. It stepped forward into the faint light spilling from the kitchen. A cold, pale face emerged, sharp features twisted in a mocking grin. His eyes glinted like broken glass, fixated on Sarah. "Why do you look so scared? Is it because you care?" Mr. Reynolds stepped closer, eyes twinkling as if thoroughly enjoying the play. "Those little brats won't be so quiet for long." A frantic chant of despair washed over her. "Not my children." She was ready to leap forward, knife raised. But deep within her a sliver of doubt held her back. His finger drifted to his lips, silencing her. "Let us not ruin the game, dear Sarah. They need to know how this goes." Sarah felt sick. "You're sick," the figure laughed. A high, shrill sound that didn't match the shape of a man. "Playtime or dinner time? We don't have to be exclusive." With every word, the air thickened, shadows danced closer. Sarah's grip tightened on the blade. Something snapped inside her, a mix of fear and rage, like a coiled spring flinging open. She rushed forward into the dark, anger fueled by desperation. "Get away from my kids," she shouted, lunging with the knife. But he vanished, just like that. Like smoke in the wind, a chilling silence enveloped her. The kitchen light flickered and sputtered. She spun around, scanning for movement, breath hitching again. Nothing. "Mia?" she called out, her voice barely a whisper. The tremor in her words betrayed her resolve. A faint sound came from upstairs, a thud, then silence. "Jake?" "No," she gasped, a wave of panic surging through her body as she raced back toward the stairs, gripping the railing as if it were her lifeline. But before she could take another step, a large shadow loomed over her. She froze, cut off from escape. It was too late. "Thought you'd just run away? You're so predictable, Sarah." It was Mr. Reynolds, now behind her, a presence heavy with malice. "Run!" she screamed, spinning to face him. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Would she confront him? Would she keep running? The shadows around seemed to pulse with life, twisting and turning, whispering promises of terror. Suddenly, a scream pierced through the darkness from above, a child's scream, raw and primal. Without thinking, Sarah bolted toward the stairs. The game was no longer a question. She was entering the fight, clashing against the shadows, ready to reclaim her children at any cost. With her heart pounding in her ears, she felt the true terror in her gut. There was no going back. But as she reached the top step, she paused, breath held tight. A final whisper slithered through the air, chilling her straight to her core. "Let us see how fast you can run when the hunt begins." What lay just beyond the door? And could she face what awaited inside? The door stood ajar, a dark maw inviting her in. The scream echoed again, louder this time. It clawed at Sarah's heart, sending her blood ice cold. "Mia! Jake!" She couldn't breathe. They were so close. What kind of nightmare had become of her home? With trembling hands, she pushed the door open. The dim light from the hallway barely illuminated the room. Shadows lurked in every corner, watchful and hungry. She stepped inside, heart pounding like a war drum. A few toys spewed across the floor like fallen soldiers in a forgotten battlefield. But the kids, where were they? "Mia, Jake," her voice quavered, soft and desperate. The room responded only with silence, thick and oppressive. Another scream ripped through the air. This time it was unmistakably Jake's. She blinked, straining to hear over the pounding in her chest, when a flicker of light caught her eye. Instinctively, she turned toward the closet at the far end of the room. It was slightly ajar, shadow leaking like ink from its gaping mouth. "Please, kids." The very thought of her children in danger sent her forward, determination surging in her veins as she reached for the handle. A cold wind rushed past, caressing her neck with icy fingers. She hesitated, breath hitching, then yanked the door open. Inside, darkness met her gaze, as though the closet held shadows rather than clothes. "Come on," she urged, her voice firm now. "We have to go." But the only response was a soft chuckle, chilling her blood. "They want to come to you, Sarah, they're mine now." The voice came from behind her, smooth, taunting. Whirling around, Sarah brandished the knife, the blade glinting barely in the low light. "Leave them alone." Mr. Reynolds leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed, a sinister smile curving his lips. "You really don't understand, do you? They are so much more fun when they're frightened." "No." Her scream burst forth, raw and primal. A mother's fury ignited. She lunged again, aiming for his heart, but he sidestepped with a laugh like broken glass. Suddenly, everything shifted. Shadows morphed, taking grotesque shapes, swirling around Sarah. Panic engulfed her. Each breathed word scraped against her throat. "What do you want from us?" His laughter echoed cruelly, reverberating off the walls. "For you to see the game unfold. Your children, their screams, all part of my little play." Every word cut deep. She could almost feel the shadows tightening around her, suffocating hope. "I'll make you pay for this, will you?" he purred, stepping closer, his presence suffocating with malice. "You are so certain. But tell me, how far would you go for them?" A sudden swell of strength coursed through her as if the very thought of Mia and Jake gave her wings. She remembered their laughter, their innocence, and she would fight back. Gripping the knife harder, she felt hot tears prick her eyes. "I'd do anything." With a swift motion, she plunged forward, aiming to break through the darkness. But he was gone again. The shadows swallowed him, leaving only silence behind. "Mia! Jake!" she yelled again, terror flooding her voice. Then, she heard it, their voices, tangled in fear, muffled through the walls. Her heart pounded as a flicker of hope ignited within her. But just then, the closet door slammed shut on its own, trapping her inside a twisted purgatory of echoes and whispers. A shadow loomed before her, shifting slowly, and with it came Mr. Reynolds' chilling whisper. Let the real hunt begin. What kind of nightmare was she stepping into? Would she sink into the shadows, or fight for her children until her last breath? The darkness was thick in the closet, smothering her senses. Sarah couldn't tell how long she had been trapped inside, but time had lost all meaning. The only thing that mattered was the distant sound of crying, her children's cries. Each pitiful whimper stabbed at her heart, more painful than the knife still clutched in her hand. "Mia! Jake!" Panic surged, her voice rising in desperation. She pressed her ear against the closet door, straining to discern their cries, hoping to find their source. The house groaned around her, settling into an eerie silence that hung like fog. Then the mocking laughter broke through the quiet again, Mr. Reynolds' voice resonating just beyond her reach. "You're playing my game, Sarah. But you have to search deeper if you want them back." Search deeper? What did he mean? Her mind raced, questions bubbling to the surface. Could he be hiding them somewhere in the house? Was he leading her into a trap? Suddenly, the air grew cold, and fear clawed at her throat. Taking a deep breath, she swung the closet door open, spilling into the dim light of the room. Shadows dripped from the walls, dancing menacingly at the edges of her vision. Forcing herself to move, Sarah steadied her hands, gripping the knife tightly. She had to act. "Mia! Jake!" she shouted, more forcefully this time, the fear in her voice replaced by an edge of resolve. She turned to the door, moving out into the hallway. The house felt alive, whispering secrets just out of earshot. As if it conspired against her, she crept forward. Footsteps sounded from below, a slow, deliberate pace echoing up the stairs. "Kids, please. Where are you?" Her heart raced with each step, and she moved with caution, knowing she was hunting shadows. A flicker of movement pulled her attention. She turned to find a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway, a faint light glimmering from within. Was it the basement? The thought sent shivers down her spine. The cries grew clearer now, broken and frantic. They were definitely coming from there. Summoning every ounce of courage, Sarah rushed to the door, swinging it wide open. Stairs spiraled down into blackness, and she hesitated. The light flickered again, and she could have sworn she saw figures moving in the dark below. "Mia! Jake! I'm coming!" Just as she was about to step down, the whispers increased, swelling around her like a tempest. "Come play with us," a distorted giggle. A child's voice, but wrong, twisted, deep in mirthful cruelty. It sent her heart racing. "No!" She backed away, heart slamming in her chest. Suddenly, hands gripped her shoulders from behind, as cold and clammy as a grave. Before she could scream, Mr. Reynolds' face filled her vision, leering into her soul. "You think you can save them? They're already part of the game." With a swift motion, he jerked her back, and the door slammed shut, plunging her into shadow once again. All around her, the voices grew louder, more chaotic, as if a dozen souls cried out in unison, a cacophony that twisted her stomach and sent her mind spiraling. "Stop it! Where are my kids?" Desperation coursed through her, and the shadows writhed around her feet, reaching out like tendrils of smoke. "She'll never find them," Reynolds hissed, a serpent's whisper curling around her. "You play my game or suffer the consequences." With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah's thoughts raced. There had to be a way out, a way to find Mia and Jake. But just then, The closet door creaked open again, and she caught a glimpse of a pale hand reaching towards her, eyes glowing like lanterns in the darkness. "Mama," a voice whimpered from the void. It was soft, pleading, yet filled with an unearthly echo that chilled her to the bone. Mustering her courage, Sarah stepped toward the hand, feeling the shadows pull at her. Was this a trap? Did she dare to reach into the darkness? Seemed like the only option left. "Mama, help us." With a lurch, she reached for the hand, her body teetering on the edge of the abyss. Would she pull them back or plunge into a fate worse than silence? Her heart raced as the whispers morphed into laughter, and all hope seemed to wane. Would she emerge from the shadows, or would the darkness consume her whole, along with the light of her children? The hand was cold, like ice sliding over her skin. Sarah felt a jolt of terror mixed with a spark of hope as she grasped it. The grip tightened around her fingers, but instead of the familiar warmth of her daughter, it was a ghostly touch, brittle and eerie. The shadows around her pulsed, undulating like a living thing, threatening to swallow her whole. "Mama!" The voice was desperate, trembling. But as she pulled harder, the hand began to retract violently into the closet, dragging her with it. Panic surged through her, twisting her heart. "No, let go! Let go!" Suddenly, she was yanked forward. The closet door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls, plunging her into a chaos of darkness and voices. "Play the game," they shrieked. "Find us." Sarah stumbled backward, heart pounding, panic clawing at her throat. The laughter echoed all around her, mocking and sinister. She gripped the knife tightly, its cold steel grounding her in this madness. "Mia! Jake!" she shouted, desperation cracking her voice. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat, pressing in around her. She knew she had to break free to find her children. She swung the knife wildly, hoping to carve a path through the darkness. But the blade met something solid, a faint flash of light illuminating twisted shadows that melted away just as quickly. "You're not alone, Mommy," the twisted voices sang. They were everywhere and nowhere. "Find us." The echoes twisted her mind. No, she couldn't let it take her. With every ounce of strength, she edged toward the closet door again, the cold seeming to pull at her with a greedy hunger. This time she wouldn't be afraid. She had to face this. "Please, where are you?" Her voice rose, a scream, teetering on the edge of madness. The oppression of the whispers pressed heavier against her. From the dark edges of the closet, the semblance of a face appeared, pale and shadowy, eyes wide, shimmering with despair. "Help!" The word broke, a fragile thread of sound. "They're coming for us." A shiver washed over her as she met the child's gaze. It was not Mia or Jake, this was a different child. One she didn't recognize. But the terror in those eyes pierced her soul. "Which way? Where do I go?" But before it could answer, a deafening crash shattered the stillness, and the house shook as if responding to a command. The floor beneath her groaned, a splitting sound that made her blood freeze. "Sarah!" The voice of Mr. Reynolds boomed from the shadows, deep and resonant, full of malice. "You've lost the game. Now it's my turn to play." Without thinking, she bolted toward the sound, knife raised, adrenaline fueling her every step. The air was thick with dread as she sprinted down the hallway. The walls twisted in on themselves, morphing like gelatin. No, not now. She couldn't lose her way. A door at the far end of the hallway crashed open, and bright light spilled into the dark, revealing menacing shadows that scuttled and lurked. Shapes converged, closing in around her with a malicious intent. Her heart raced, every breath a gasp of terror as she approached the edge of the light. A chilling laughter danced through the air, sending panic coursing through her veins. "Ready or not, here I come." Sarah faced the encroaching darkness, her hands trembling as she raised the knife. A voice, muffled but familiar, broke through the chaos. "Help us, Mama." In that moment, she knew she could not turn back. The choice was now between the faint hope of rescuing her children and the all-consuming fear of the shadows. Did she dare step into the light? What awaited her on the other side? Just then, the shadows surged forward, And for the first time, Sarah realized she didn't just need to save her children. She had to confront the monster terrorizing them all. As the darkness swept toward her, the echoes of laughter merged into a single, haunting question. Who will play the game, you or them? And with that, she understood the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. The game was just beginning. The moment Sarah crossed the threshold into the light, a warmth enveloped her, but it was a false comfort. The shadows writhed just beyond, hungrily twitching and darting like predatory creatures waiting for nightfall. The laughter grew louder, thick with malice, echoing in her ears, drowning out her thoughts, creating a suffocating atmosphere of dread. "Mama!" The voices of her children sounded again, clearer this time, threading through the cacophony. But were they real? Was this another trap? "Where are you?" she cried, her voice trembling. The light flickered, revealing glimpses of objects from her past old family photos. Scuffed toys of Mia and Jake. Stirrings of nostalgia clawed at her heart, but the laughter quickly shattered that fragile moment, reminding her of the danger. She turned, gasping, still holding the knife. The spaces between the light and darkness shimmered like a curtain, and for a second, she thought she could hear them sobbing, just beyond the glow. "Help us, Mama! Help!" With fierce determination, Sarah took a step forward into the light, only to find it retreating, leaving her half-illuminated 1 foot in hope but engulfed in despair. The shadows pressed closer, and she felt icy fingers brushing against her back. They were testing her resolve. "Come play with us," they sang, a sickly sweet symphony that echoed hollowly within her. Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting against the urge to succumb to the darkness. She couldn't stand the thought of losing them again, especially when they were so close. "I'm coming," she shouted defiantly, tightening her grip on the knife, resolve hardening her voice. Suddenly, a chilling wind whooshed past her, flicking errant shards of shadow that felt like fingernails scraping against her skin. She pumped her legs, tearing toward the source of the voices. "I will find you." Each word burned in the air, a battle cry against the encroaching horror. The ground shifted beneath her, but she didn't stumble. Instead, she lunged, the knife glimmering as she thrust it ahead. "You're scared of this," she yelled, conviction surging as memories of laughter and joy filled her. The shadows swelled, shrieking in frustration, recoiling as if she had struck a nerve. "Stop her!" A voice thundered, deep and resonant, a command dripping with wrath. Sarah pressed on, fueled by the prospect of freedom and the desperate need for her children. "I can't lose you. Not again." The way ahead glowed faintly, silhouettes of her children dancing just on the edge, shimmering like hope in the dark. Disembodied hands reached from the shadows, trying to snatch at her coat, scratching her as she darted past narrow gaps between the walls of darkness. The fear surged again, a tidal wave of doubt. What if this was a trap? What if they weren't even there? But as she stumbled closer, she recognized the familiar tunes of Mia's laughter mingling with Jake's playful taunts. They were so close. "Don't give up, Mama," the echo urged with warmth, and she felt her heart swell with love. Suddenly, a shadow lunged at her, dark and feathery, gaping mouths of laughter shrieking as they came for her. The knife slipped from her hands, clattering onto the ground. "No, no," she screamed, feeling the grasp of icy tendrils tighten around her ankles. With one final surge of desperation, Sarah lunged for the sound of her children, her body colliding into an unseen force just as the darkness folded over her. As the cold enveloped her, a final laughter rang out, echoing through the void. "Who will be the last one standing? Playtime isn't over yet." The world fell into darkness again as she vanished from sight. The cold darkness wrapped around Sarah, a suffocating blanket that stifled her hope. The weight of despair pressed on her chest like a physical entity. She could feel the shadows laughing, mocking her desperate attempts to save her children. But somewhere, beneath that chilling veil, a flicker of courage sparked inside her. "Mia! Jake!" she shouted into the void, her voice breaking the silence that surrounded her. Each name echoed back, taunting her as if the shadows reveled in her misery. She couldn't afford to give in. Not now. With a newfound determination, she forced herself to her feet. She could feel the weight of the shadows clinging to her, but she would not allow them to drag her down. She staggered forward, driven by the love for her children, a flame that refused to be extinguished. "Where are you?" she cried, her voice stronger this time. An answering whimper sent a jolt of panic through her heart. It was Jake, his voice a weak echo of what it should be. The faint cries tore through the darkness, real and desperate. She had to find them. Sarah pressed onward. She focused on the feelings, the echoes of them that lingered in her mind, the laughter shared during summer picnics, the warmth of their hugs, the innocence of childhood. They were her guiding stars, illuminating her path through the suffocating dark. Suddenly, the shadows around her began to shudder as if they sensed her resolve. The malevolent whispers faded momentarily, giving way to a soft breeze carrying the scent of daisies, their favorite flowers. Was this the light she needed? She reached for it, heart racing. The air shifted, pulling back like a curtain, revealing flashes of her children, flickers of familiar moments amidst the chaos. "Mommy!" Their voices floated to her again, filled with such yearning. Her heart hammered at the sound. She pushed forward. But as she moved, the shadows erupted, lunging at her like a horde of wild animals, trying to drag her back into their grasp. Sarah grit her teeth against the onslaught, wielding her determination like a shield. She would not be their prey. She would be the warrior. With every ounce of strength, she fought through the dark tendrils, refusing to give up. "No more games," she shouted defiantly, as she charged through the obscurity, her body trembling with effort. In a sudden, breathtaking moment, light burst through the darkness, illuminating a familiar room, her children's room. She stumbled in, heart in her throat. There they were, Mia and Jake, huddled together behind the bed, wide-eyed and terrified. "Mom!" They rushed towards her, the warmth of their bodies igniting her soul. "Oh, thank God!" She dropped to her knees, wrapping them in her arms. She felt their small bodies shaking, but she could also feel their love, a balm for her frayed nerves. "It's okay. I've got you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. They were safe. They had made it. But the shadows were not done. The chilling laughter echoed again, Mr. Reynolds' voice slicing through the moment. "You can't hide from me, Sarah. This isn't over yet," he taunted, his shadow looming just beyond the threshold. Panic surged again, but this time it shifted into fierce defiance. "Yes, it is." She stepped forward, clutching her children tightly. "You've taken enough from us." With a burst of energy, she pushed past the door, heading straight for Mr. Reynolds. Her knife, though small, gleamed ominously in the light. The weight of a mother's wrath surged through her. He had awakened something in her that was unyielding. "Leave us alone," she shouted, thrusting the knife toward him as she charged. The shadows recoiled, screeching in anguish, but Reynolds only laughed. "You think this is enough?" he taunted, stepping back but clearly unfazed. Shadows twisted at his command, growing dense around him. "No, I am enough," Sarah yelled, stepping forward again. She lunged, only to find him disappearing into the shadows with a final, echoing laugh. But her resolve didn't waver. She stood strong, her children behind her, breathing out the fear that had clung for too long. She would not allow the darkness to win. "Let us go," she said softly to Mia and Jake. "We're leaving this place." Together, they walked out of the room, heading for the front door. With each step, the oppressive weight lifted. No longer did shadows creep close. They were dissipating like smoke. The warmth of the sun shone promisingly through the windows, beckoning them outside to safety. When they finally stepped into the brightness of the day, Sarah felt lighter, a fierce sense of freedom washed over her. They had survived. They had made it through the darkest night, and the shadows could no longer touch them as the SUV pulled away from their home. She glanced back at the house, standing silent against the backdrop of blue skies. It had held their fears, but that chapter was over. They would write their own story now. "Mom," Is Daddy coming home soon? Jake asked, his innocent eyes searching hers. I don't know, love, she replied, but we have each other, and that's what matters. The sun warmed their faces as they drove forward, the shadows of Maplewood shrinking in the rearview mirror. In the blink of an eye, they were on their way to brighter days. And though the haunting echoes might linger, Sarah knew that whatever came next, she would face it together with her children at her side. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm the love it craves. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions.